Hello, my name is Radwin, and today I'm going to talk about the writing skill. So here I'm going to share with you my presentation. And yes, this moment. So then I would like to start with what writing is. So then here I cite two authors. Pincus states that writing is a way of communicating a message to a reader for a purpose, and Barley Brand defines that writing is producing or reproducing written message. It is an active process to organize and formulate ideas on a paper. Therefore, before we write, we need to determine what to write should have something meaningful to convey. I would like to mention that a writing process is a little bit not so easy because you need to take into account the different language components. So while you are writing, you need to know about grammar, vocabulary, and different things to make the text be cohesive and coherent, right? And then here we have the different writing types. For example, we have expository text, which goal is to inform about a topic, narrative, what happens in a story, persuasive, expressing ideas to argument, discuss, convince, or even entertain, descriptive, describing someone or something. So a writing process is a way to express your ideas, feelings, thoughts, but you can use these different types depending on what you want to get from your readings or what you want from yourself. Yes. Here we have the approaches to student writing. There are a number of approaches, but we as teachers decide on what we want our students focus on what our last goal is to encourage and develop in our students the writing ability. So here we have the 7 approaches that I read from the different books. Number 1, process and products. So here you as teacher decide if you want to pay attention to the process or the product, because the process is the while writing and the product is the final result. The genre. What is the genre? As I already mentioned to you, there are 4 types of writing: expository, narrative, persuasive, and descriptive. Creative writing. So here you have the opportunity to the students to think about different topics, or even if you assign a topic, so their ideas will be written on a paper, so they are free to write. And then number 4, writing as a cooperative activity. It is really important, this approach. Why? Because you as writer, you don't write only for yourself, you write for others. So you have an audience, and then the audience will judge you, will recommend you to write in this way, or will say, yes, I really agree with you in this sense. Okay, so you write for an audience. Then we have building the writing habit. Is really important because um, since the beginning of the lesson, you as teacher, you give the student the right tools to get this productive skill, which is a little bit difficult because I have already mentioned. So includes the all components of the language. The writing for learning and writing for writing. What does it mean? When you write, so you are learning because you are using the language. But if you write only for write, it means that you are only expressing your ideas and you are not following the cohesive and the coherence. So maybe when your audience will read your final result, they will say, I don't understand anything that this person would say or upset about this. And then number 7, the role of the teacher. Here, we as teacher, we are monitored. So we control and we check the process while the students are writing. Let's go to the next slide. Here we have the what. So here we have instruct the students in principle of rhetoric and organization presented as rules for writing. During the lesson, you will you will teach your student how to write an essay, how to make sentences, how to write a paragraph. So you will give them the rules to write. Provide a text for classroom discussion, analysis, and interpretation, preferably a work of literature. So you, to start your class of writing class, you can give them, for example, not only a text to read, but you can give them a video. You can even start a conversation, and they could write a paragraph regarding of what was talked about. Number three, require a writing assignment. It is really important to assign your students to give you, because you are in charge to evaluate them, to give you a final result. And then read, comment on, and criticize students' paper prior to beginning the next assignment in this cycle. What does it mean? It is a feedback, because you need to give the student a feedback and tell them, so your mistakes were this, you need to improve this, you need to do this instead of not repeating the mistakes. Yes. And then here we have the how. So here you have different things that you can practice during the lesson. For example, coping, doing exercises, guided writing, process writing, unguided writing. Doing exercise is really important because as much the student practice, as much they will produce a good result. They will get a good result. Guided writing during the lesson. So you are gonna control, you are gonna check, and you are gonna guide the student on a good way to write in a better way. Process writing, here you pay attention the way that the student will write. If he or she is using the verbs, is using the correct words, or what they want to say is expressed in a good way, or maybe if you understood anything so they can rephrase the sentences. Yes. And then here we go to the key principles. So understand your students' reason for writing, provide many opportunities for your students to write, make feedback helpful and meaningful, clarify for yourself and for students how their writing will be evaluated. Key principles is the way that you are gonna put in practice your writing lessons. Understand your students' reason for writing. So you need to know your students. You need to, for example, if they don't know about football, if you ask them to give you a paragraph about football, maybe they won't like, and they will fail. So that's why you need to know them. And after having to know them, so you're gonna give them the good assignments to get from them a good result. Yes. And make feedback is really important because you're gonna check the whole process, and then you tell them, improve this, don't do repeat this, to have something good at the end. So then how to evaluate or assess. The evaluation criteria should be identified so that the student will know in advance how their output will be judged. For example, you as teacher, you can use this rubric, checklist, rating skills. For example, in all of these three ways to evaluate the writing result, so you can have a criteria. For example, you can evaluate coherence, cohesive, accuracy, grammar, vocabulary. So you have all the criteria. You assign a score, and then, but you give the student a feedback having on your hand what you evaluated. Yes, because the student will tell you like, teacher, but you didn't mention that, or why are you evaluating this because you didn't explain that. So yes, that's why it's really important to have a resource to evaluate the students. And then the classroom activities. So you can, for example, punctuate a text, a story reconstruction, a story continuation, writing a review, dictation, personal story, describe someone or something, and report writing. These are some activities that you can use when you are teaching writing. Then here, so I'm gonna do my demonstration. So um, the activity is like the student, they need to describe someone. But then we're gonna start with a pre-writing. So here we have two pictures in which they can see two people. So what we want from them is like they describe as much as possible these two people. What they see, if they see colors, if they see emotion, feelings, maybe another adjective, other adjective, sorry, ages, or what this person, these people do. Yes, after having done the pre-writing, we go to the brainstorming. Here on the board, I'm gonna ask the student all the words as much as possible they can say from the description of these two people, and I'm gonna write them on the board. And the reason to write the words on the board will help the students to get a clear picture on how they are gonna describe the person that they have in their mind. For example, here we have a singer, woman, man, old, rich, and so on. Then here, after the brainstorming, we have the writing process. So here I'm gonna show them an example. For example, she's Shakira from Colombia. She's 50 years old and currently she lives in Spain with her husband and her two sons. She's a famous singer around the world and she likes dancing too much. One of the reasons that she's a referent in the world is because she likes moving her hips. This is an example. So then now they have the pre-writing. So now they are gonna work on the writing process, right? So they have chosen the person and they're gonna think, they're gonna describe the person, like they could have a mind map, a brainstorm from the different adjectives that they consider could describe a person in a good way. And now following this kind of this structure, so they can get a paragraph. Then here we have the final text. So now they did the opportunity to write the text and they will give it to me to correct it. And we go to the teacher's feedback. Like the final step is we as teacher, we're gonna check with the students, we're gonna tell them, listen, so you need to pay attention to this mistake. So vocabulary is not good. You wanted to say this, but I understood this another thing. So you have your assessment criteria, and then criteria, sorry, and then you are gonna guide the student on the another opportunity not to commit these mistakes, or maybe you can tell them like, no, it was a good work, so continue doing this, continue to keep on doing this. And yes, so I would like to conclude my presentation telling the writing skill is one of the productive skill. Like you have a final result, so you put everything, every language component together. But if it is not easy, neither to teach, neither for teachers, neither for students, while because you really pay too much attention to the different language components, different language things, which is not difficult. It's not so difficult, but it's not so easy. But it's a good way because you put in practice what you have in your mind and you have a production in English. So thank you so much. And